Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. And before we preview the sporting weekend ahead and what a sporting weekend it promises to be, let's talk about the big rugby news. And that is that Springbok lock Ebben Etzebeth has been banned for an effective 12 matches for the eye gouge on Welshman Alec Mann during their clash in the Springboks game last weekend. The Springbok lock appeared before a disciplinary committee, and while it was initially reported that the outcome would only be delivered this Sunday, the committee released their findings last night. They said that Etzebeth's actions were deliberate and warranted an entry-level ban of 18 weeks. But because of his remorse and good disciplinary record, it was brought down to 12 weeks. Etzebeth's ban could have been a lot worse and could have been more than a year, as has been seen in other cases. He will now be available to play for his franchise, the Sharks, and the Springboks after the 27th of March next year, which means he will be available for the full Springbok season. So he did appear before the committee. The Independent Disciplinary Committee was chaired by Christopher Quinlan, joined by former international players Leon Lloyd and Becky Essex. So that is a very good result, if you think about it, for Etzebeth. Could have been so much worse. Well, he certainly deserves everything that he gets. So he will miss the following games: the Sharks against Toulouse, Saracens, the Bulls, the Lions, the Sale Sharks, Clermont, the Stormers, twice against the Stormers, in fact, against the Lions, and then against the Bulls, against Munster, and against Cardiff, all the way up to and including the 27th of March 2026. So big ban for him, and he's going to, I'm sure, take it on the chin and move ahead going forward after that. Now, while we're on the subject of rugby, of course, it is a very big weekend right here in Cape Town, where we bring you from the boardroom to the locker room every week. And that is because the Cape Town Sevens is underway, gets underway tomorrow with the opening game once against Spain, followed by Australia against Argentina. New Zealand play Great Britain. Fiji play South Africa, the Blitzboks, in the same group as New Zealand, South Africa, the Blitzboks, and Great Britain Sevens. A tough group for the South Africans. After their fifth place in Dubai, they will be looking for a much better result in front of their home fans in Cape Town. Can tell you the weather is set fair for the weekend, but the wind has been howling in Cape Town over the last couple of weeks, and that might make handling a little bit tricky, but it's a magnificent stadium. It should be an absolutely fun-filled weekend. All the action tomorrow and then again on Sunday, with the final culminating on Sunday evening. Play goes on right the way through until 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. Now, that's the Sevens rugby. There's also 15-man rugby. Tonight, the EPCR Challenge Cup sees Ulster take on Racing 92 at 10 o'clock. And then in the Champions Cup this evening, the Sale Sharks take on the Glasgow Warriors, and Bayonne take on the Stormers from the Cape. That's tonight at 10 o'clock. Then tomorrow sees the EPCR Challenge Cup, the early kickoff at 3 o'clock. Two games. The Lions take on the Benetton rugby team, and Stade Francais take on Cardiff, while at 5:15, Black Lion take on Montpellier. 7:30, it's the Lyon against the Newcastle Falcons, and then at 10 o'clock, it's Zebra against Montauban. And then in the Champions Cup, 3 o'clock kickoff for Saracens against Clermont. The Bulls at 5:15 play Union Bordeaux Beagles. La Rochelle take on the Leicester Tigers at 7:30. Leinster play the Harlequins at 7:30, with Llanelli Scarlet taking on the Bristol Bears and Bath taking on Munster. Both those games at 10 o'clock. And then on Sunday, Papillon take on the Dragons in the EPCR Challenge. Ospreys against Connacht. Exeter Chiefs play the Cheetahs of South Africa. And the Champions Cup sees Section Palois take on Northampton Saints. Stade Toulousain take on the Sharks from Durban. Gloucester take on Castres Olympique. And Edinburgh play Toulon. So lots of fantastic action this weekend in Sevens and in the 15-man game across the world. So lots of great action, lots of to look forward to, and it promises to be a wonderful weekend as far as the rugby is concerned. Now, on to golf. The interesting scenarios developing with regards to the golfing world at the moment. Unfortunately, I can't give you day 2 of the tournament at Sunset, but I can tell you that in Australia, the Australian Open, Rasmus Nergaard Peterson is your leader there. After 2 rounds, he is at 133.9 under par, along with Daniel Rodriguez. Min Woo Lee, 1 shot back on 8 under par, and after a magnificent opening day for Christopher Rayton, he shot a 63.9 under par, debuting in the $1 million, the Nedbank Golf Challenge in honor of Gary Player. He leads there going into the second round. And at the Hero World Tour, that's Tiger Woods' tournament, a 66 for Ashkay Bhatia, Wyndham Clark, and Scotty Scheffler, all shooting 66s, as did JJ Spawn and Sepp Straka, with Keegan Bradley and Corey Connors at 5 under par. So lots of golf to come over the weekend. And most of these tournaments, bar one next week, of course, on the schedule, the Alfred Dunhill tournament, it is then going to be an opportunity for these golfers to have a bit of a break. So it's the Alfred Dunhill next week. That's at the Royal Johannesburg and Kensington East Course. And then the following week in Mauritius, they are. I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely amazing a couple of days, 4 or 5 days for the players. At Afri Asia Bank Mauritius Open, beautiful part of the world, absolutely gorgeous part of the world. And then, of course, Christmas and New Year, where the players will take a break from golf. Now, the other big news through the course of the week is that Serena Williams has insisted she's got no plans to make a return to tennis after her registration with the sports drug testing body sparked reports of a dramatic comeback. You know the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, the 23-time Grand Slam singles champion hasn't competed since a third-round loss at the 2022 US Open. And that left her 1 short of the all-time record held by Novak Djokovic and Margaret Court of 24 Grand Slams. According to the International Tennis Integrity Agency, the sports drug testing body said it is correct. She is back on the registered testing pool list. Now, you must be wondering why she would be back on that pool list. Now, following a 3-set defeat by Australia's Ayla Tomljanovic. At Flushing Meadows 3 years ago, Williams said she did not want to use the word retiring, but instead explained she was evolving away from tennis. Now, players who decide to return to testing need to provide information about their time and locations where they are available to give samples. They also need to complete testing for 6 months before they are allowed to return to competition. So why on earth would she be doing it? Well, you never know. She did reply on X, formerly known as Twitter, they told me, that she said, OMG, you all, you know how the Americans speak, I'm not coming back, this wildfire is crazy. Well, then why did you spark the wildfire, Serena? Are you looking for publicity? Is it because you're out of the limelight, or have been for a while? Your ego's taking the better of you? Who knows? Anyway, be that as it may, she says she's not coming back to play tennis. So let's see what happens. We wait for that. Now, good news for Nick Kyrgios fans is the former Wimbledon finalist has signalled his intention to play at the Australian Open. He signed up for the Kooyong Classic warm-up exhibition event. The 30-year-old Australian has been ravaged by career-threatening injuries over the last couple of years. He's only played 5 singles matches this year, the most recent at the Miami Open way back in March. He is 666th in the world with no protected ranking. He will need a wild card to play any of the ATP warm-up tournaments ahead of the Australian Open, as well as the Grand Slam tournament itself. So he has lots and lots to still do to get in to the big tournaments around the world. Now, there is the matter of a draw that takes place tonight. Must be honest with you, really I am looking forward to it, because they do it like no other as far as the Americans are concerned. And tonight it is the draw for the FIFA World Cup. It is going to be spectacular. There are all sorts of permutations that could come out of it, and it takes place tonight in Washington. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, is set to play a prominent part in a star-studded ceremony that will mark out the path to glory for the contenders at the first ever 48-team finals. The most logistically complex World Cup in history will be held across North America from the 11th of June to the 19th of July next year, with 16 more teams added to the global showpiece, up from the 32 nations involved in Qatar in 2022. Tonight's ceremony, which takes place at the Kennedy Center on the banks of the Potomac River at 7 o'clock Central African time, reaches far beyond football, with several of the biggest stars in American sporting world participating, while Trump will take center stage. The FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, has developed a very close relationship with Trump, including making several visits to the White House. Now, the US president is expected to be the first ever recipient of the FIFA Peace Prize, which will be awarded during the draw ceremony to recognize, I quote, the enormous efforts of those individuals who unite people, bringing hope for future generations. Even the choice of draw venue is a nod to Trump, who recently installed himself as chairman of the Kennedy Center, a performing arts venue opened in the 1970s, which is just a short walk away from the White House. The ceremony will be co-hosted by supermodel Heidi Klum, and American actor and comedian Kevin Hart. Will feature performances by The Village People, Andre Bocelli, and Robbie Williams. NFL legend Tom Brady, ice hockey icon Wayne Gretzky, and former NBA superstar Shaquille O'Neal will be amongst the stars helping conduct the draw. Now, Trump has made the World Cup a centerpiece of his second presidency and the 250th anniversary of the United States independence next year. But he has not hesitated to inject domestic politics into the preparations, threatening to move World Cup matches from Democratic-run cities if he deems conditions unsafe. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum will also be in attendance at the ceremony. 11 of the 16 World Cup venues are in the United States, with 3 in Mexico and 2 in Canada. Now, the political elements to the draw saw Iran vowed to boycott the ceremony because the United States refused to grant visas to several members of their delegation. Iranian Football Federation President Ahmed Taj denounced the USA's decision as purely political. Iran subsequently would now send representatives, including head coach Amir Galanoy. Lionel Messi's Argentina are the reigning champions after winning the World Cup for the third time in Qatar. Messi will turn 39 during the tournament, and he told ESPN that he hopes he can be there. He said that he'd love to be at the tournament. There will also be a couple of other superstars, and Rio Ferdinand will be one of those people that will be doing the draw. Now, because of the complexity, teams will only learn the full details of their match venues and kickoff times tomorrow. That's a day after the draw takes place tonight. The opening match will be held at the Azteca Stadium in Mexico City, with a final at the MetLife Stadium just outside New York. Now, there are still 6 finals berths to be decided in playoffs, the winners of which will be amongst the bottom seeds. The favourites will therefore want to avoid Italy, World Cup winners as recently as 2006, but who failed to qualify for the last 2 tournaments. So there's still a lot to go and a couple of teams that still need to get in there. Now, I know I've moved along from the rugby fixtures, but the rugby draw for the World Cup has also been made this week, and a very interesting one indeed as far as the Springboks are concerned, because it looks as though they might very well be on a collision course with the All Blacks in the quarterfinals of the competition. But as Sir Khaleesi and Rassie Erasmus have said, it doesn't matter. We've got to play everybody to win the World Cup, so it doesn't matter when we play them. Now, at first glance, it might look like an easy draw for South Africa, but potentially a nightmare quarterfinal against the All Blacks. The draw, though, is not as bad as the 2023 World Cup, where the Springboks were drawn against Ireland and Scotland in the pools and had to face France in the quarterfinals before England in the semis and New Zealand in the final. But the prospect of the 2 World Cup finalists from 2023 facing each other in the quarterfinals, promise you, is not one that either side would have wanted. But that does mean that the Northern Hemisphere teams might have an opportunity at this World Cup coming up in 2027 in Australia. The Springboks have been drawn with Italy, Georgia and Romania in their pool, 2 of the 3 opponents they played this year, and won easily, while Romania aren't expected to provide much of a challenge to the Springboks. So, what does the draw look like as far as the teams are concerned? So, New Zealand, Australia, Chile and Hong Kong in Pool A. South Africa, Italy, Georgia, Romania in Pool B. With Argentina, Fiji, Spain and Canada in Pool C. Ireland, Scotland, Uruguay and Portugal in Pool D. Pool E sees France, Japan, the USA and Samoa. And Pool F, England, Wales, Tonga and Zimbabwe. So, no group of death really as far as the World Cup draw is concerned. It's just interesting that Australia and New Zealand have been drawn in the same pool, But remember, of course, 2 teams will go through to a round of 16 in this World Cup, and then, of course, to the final 8 and so on, right the way through to the World Cup final. And skipper Scott Barrett has said that the All Blacks have no fear of potentially meeting the Boks in the 2027 World Cup quarterfinals, but admitted they must peak at the right time. Now, remember, of course, that if Australia were to win that group and results go the way that Australia want them to go, then they would not face New Zealand, would not face South Africa. They could very well face South Africa in the quarterfinals of the competition. But as South Africa's coach, Rassie Erasmus, Captain Siya Kolisi, and all other pundits have said, it doesn't really matter. You've got to beat anybody who comes up against you, whether it's in a quarterfinal, a final, semi-final. It doesn't matter. So as we've proven in the previous World Cup where we beat France, the host nation, and then went on to beat England and the All Blacks, all 3 of those games, remember, of course, by just a single point. Is it on the cards for the Boks to win it again? A unprecedented 5th time and 3rd in a row. That would be like Brazil at the FIFA World Cup football. That would just be absolutely unbelievable. Total domination from Siya Kolisi, Rassie Erasmus, and his merry team of rugby players. Okay, so a very fancy weekend ahead with some fantastic sporting action, and most probably the most watched sport, maybe besides the World Cup draw this evening, will be Formula One. Yep, it's all down to this weekend in Abu Dhabi. What a weekend it promises to be. But there's been some movement through the course of the week with French rookie Isaac Hadjar stepping up to the main Red Bull car next season to partner 4-time world champion who might after this weekend become 5-time world champion Max Verstappen. Isaac, who just turned 21 in September this year, has enjoyed an impressive first season with Red Bull's junior team Racing Bulls, scoring 10 top 10 finishes, including his first podium when he finished 3rd in the Netherlands. He replaces Japanese driver Yuki Tsunoda, who becomes Red Bull's test and reserve driver. According to a Red Bull statement, after all the hard work I put in since joining the junior team, it's such a great reward, said a grateful Hadjar. Remember, of course, in the very first race of the season, he didn't even get past the warm-up lap, the formation lap, before he crashed his car. And look at him now. Unbelievable. Finishes in the top 10, a podium, and now promotion to what clearly has been a poison challenge drive at the main Red Bull team after Liam Lawson first got the drive, then Yuki Tsunoda got the drive, and of course now Tsunoda being booted from the team and the Frenchman in his place. Now Red Bull be hoping that Hadjar can solve the perennial problem of a partner for Max Verstappen, because Perez was there last season, Liam Lawson, and of course Tsunoda. Since then, however, Tsunoda has only scored 33 points since he took over in the World Championship compared to Verstappen's 396. Little bit of a pity for a guy who's very much loved on the grid, but you know what? In Formula One, there's no sentiment whatsoever. None whatsoever. Now, Lawson will continue with Racing Bull next year. He will be partners by Arvid Lindblad, who turned 18 in August this year. He's currently in the team's junior program in Formula 2. He's demonstrated raw speed, maturity, and potential, underscoring the team's long-standing commitment to developing elite young drivers. He was born and brought up in England with a Swedish father and a British Indian mother, and was granted an FIA super license at the age of 17 and recently tested in the first practice of the Mexico City Grand Prix. He drove Verstappen's car and he posted the 6th best time of the session. Now, Lewis Hamilton said he plans a shake-up of his team at Ferrari next year after enduring a nightmare first season with the Italians. The 40-year-old 7-time world champion, who has gone a Ferrari record 23 races without a podium finish, said he was surprised at his own resilience after enduring the most miserable run of form and results of his Formula One career. He said it's been difficult ahead of the season-ending Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi. Confidence goes up and down, and it comes with the territory. He says he does still have full belief in his abilities, and that's the most important thing. Holding on to that is not always the easiest thing to do, but that's what got him to where he is today. He vowed to make changes to his setup for 2026, but declined to offer details of who would be involved. Hamilton added the factors he would be taking into account would include his surroundings in terms of personnel, team personnel, how to utilize people. Do people need to move into different positions to work better. We shall see. Right, let's talk about the race itself. What a weekend it promises to be, because there are 3 drivers who can still win the Formula One drivers' title this weekend. Let's have a look at the state of play. After 23 of the 24 races, Lando Norris leads the championship with 408 points. He is 12 points clear of Red Bull 4-time champion Max Verstappen and 16 clear of his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri. This is the first time more than 2 drivers have been in with a shot of claiming the title since 2010. All Norris has to do to claim his maiden title is finish on the podium at Yas Marina, irrespective of where these 2 rivals finish. A top 3 result is all he requires. It sounds straightforward given McLaren's overall dominance. They wrapped up the Constructors' Crown 2 months ago in Singapore. But on a cautionary note, Norris has failed to make the top 3 in 6 races this year, including his disqualification from second in Las Vegas due to a technical infringement. On the plus side, the 26-year-old won in Abu Dhabi last year. Now, Verstappen has happy memories of the last time he lined up at Yas Marina with a title in play in 2021. He controversially denied Lewis Hamilton on the final lap to claim the first of his 4 successive championships. Meanwhile, Oscar Piastri, the Australian's chances are slim, but given how the season has thrown up the unexpected time and time again, the coolest customer on the grid cannot be ruled out. After all of his best weekends of the season in Qatar, he readily admitted he will need a lot of things to go in his direction to end up champion. His task is clear, if not simple. He will take the title if he finishes first or second, and both Norris and Verstappen have an off day. Now, everybody's talking about papaya rules, and there won't be any team rules, and both drivers have to can race without any rules from the team. I think that's the biggest load of nonsense, because right now, if they play that game, Max Verstappen's going to be World Drivers' Champion on Sunday night. There's absolutely no ways they can play that game. They've got to make a decision. They've got to basically say, right, Lando Norris, we're going to give you every opportunity of winning the Formula One drivers' title, because his biggest opponent is Verstappen, not Piastri. Not for one moment is it Piastri, because if Piastri or Verstappen clash, for example, then obviously the crash out, well, then the title is all over. But if the 2 McLaren drivers fight each other and they crash, or they have engine problems, or whatever, Max Verstappen will be driver's champion if he finishes the race in first, second, or even third place. If the 2 McLarens have a collision or an issue racing each other on the racetrack. So I know it's easier said than done to take the mind out of a Formula One racing driver that he must not race his opponent. But in this particular instance, my humble opinion is they need to have team orders going into this race. And if they need to change the team orders, for example, to benefit Piastri over Verstappen during the race, then that's what they must do. But when they go into the race to start with, they have to be backing Lando Norris, who is the championship leader and is the man that especially Verstappen is after, and who has a much more realistic chance of winning the driver's title than Piastri does and taking it away from Lando Norris. So that's my opinion. It's all going to play out today, tomorrow, and Sunday. It's the last race of the season, and what a Formula One season it has been. Absolutely unbelievable. Right, let's turn our attention now to football, and locally in South Africa, Orlando Pirates and Maruma Gallants will battle it out in the final of the 2025 Carling Knockout at the same venue as the 2010 FIFA World Cup venue, Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane tomorrow night. Kick-off at 6 o'clock. Pirates are the favourites coming into the match due to their cup pedigree and current form, having stretched their winning streak to 4 matches across all competitions when they claimed a 2-0 victory over Durban City at the end of November. As far as Gallants are concerned, if you want to win any cup, you must be able to beat all the big teams according to their coach. They have managed to eliminate Sundown, Stellenbosch and Arrows to reach the final. It should be a crackerjack event, always a full house. It is Orlando Pirates against the underdogs Maruma Gallants at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. And that game is tomorrow evening. As far as the other football fixtures are concerned, on the Betway Premier League. There is one game on Sunday, which will wrap up the Premier League season for Premier League fixtures for this year, rather. The season will continue in January of next year. It's Galaxy against Chiefs because, of course, we are heading towards the Cup of Nations, the African Cup of Nations that will take place in Morocco in 2 weeks' time. Right, the other football over the weekend that promises to be amazing is obviously in the Premier League, and the big story this week was when Liverpool captain Virgil van Dijk said the decision to leave Mohamed Salah on the bench in back-to-back Premier League games shows that no player is guaranteed a spot in the side, regardless of their contribution to the club's success in recent years. The 33-year-old Egyptian winger was an unused substitute in Liverpool's 2-0 win at West Ham over the weekend and came off the bench only in Wednesday's 1-1 draw with Sunderland. Salah, who signed a 2-year contract extension in April, has 5 goals in 19 matches in all competition for Liverpool this season, and he has struggled to match the consistency that helped propel the club to the league title last year. Liverpool are 9th in the table with 22 points from 14 matches, trailing leaders Arsenal by 11 points. Their poor form comes despite £446 million of spend. That's $594,000 in the close season transfer window. Van Dijk said Liverpool needs Salah back at his best, and of course he will be off to play with Egypt in the Cup of Nations. Maybe he can find his form there. Right, let's look at the fixtures then for the Premier League this weekend. And as I say, Arsenal go into the Premier League with this weekend's Premier League fixtures with a 5-point advantage, could move to 8 because they play the early game at 2:30 against Aston Villa tomorrow afternoon. They do go to Villa Park, who are in fine form at the moment, I might add, in the top 5 in the Premier League. So that's going to be a tough task for the Arsenal. And then 5 o'clock kickoff for Bournemouth against Chelsea, Everton against Nottingham Forest, Manchester City against Sunderland, and Newcastle against Burnley. Completing the 5 o'clock kickoffs will be Spurs against Brentford. And then an interesting game, Liverpool travel to Leeds United to play at 7:30. Sunday sees Brighton against West Ham and Fulham against Crystal Palace. And then on Monday night, the Wolverhampton Wanderers will host Manchester United in the last game of the weekend. The table looks like this. Top of the table is a 5-point gap between Arsenal and Manchester City. A point further back to Aston Villa in 3rd, so there's a possibility of a 6-point swing there if Aston Villa can get one over the Arsenal. Chelsea's sitting in 4th, Crystal Palace in 5th, and Sunderland, believe it or not, in 6th place in the Premier League, with Brighton, Manchester United and Liverpool all on 22 points, separated just by goal difference. And the bottom of the table, Wolverhampton Wanderers, absolutely doomed to relegation, just 2 points from their 14 matches. Burnley have 10 points from their 14 matches in a battle with West Ham, Leeds, Nottingham Forest for the remaining 3rd bottom club in the Premier League. Of course, the bottom 3 will be relegated at the end of the season. But only 14 matches played of the 36 matches that they will play throughout the season. So still a lot of football, 38 games, a lot of football still to come in the next couple of months. And of course, a lot of these teams will be losing their African players to the African Cup of Nations. That is tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We will review all the sporting action and have the results of the Formula One Grand Prix this weekend and the stories behind the stories, the controversies, and all the highs and lows as to who will be Formula One Drivers' Champion for 2025. All that and more on Monday. Until then, be nice to each other and bye for now.